The fan letter arrived on a Tuesday, the air in their shared apartment heavy with the silence of two men whose worlds had been turned upside down. The public broadcast had offered a temporary truce, but the scandal's shadow was long. Brand deals remained on ice, projects were indefinitely postponed, and the once constant hum of their phones had gone unnervingly quiet. It was the kind of quiet that suggested a finality they were both too afraid to acknowledge. The media had moved on to new dramas, but the bitter taste of betrayal and inherited guilt lingered. XiaoZhan sat on the sofa, scrolling through old messages from friends who had stopped reaching out, while WangYibo endlessly polished his motorcycle helmet, a futile ritual meant to distract him from the emptiness. The easy companionship they once shared had become strained. They were fighting for their love, but the battle had left them exhausted and emotionally bruised. They were together, but isolated, locked in a gilded cage of their own making. The letter was a jarring presence in their meticulously organized lives. It was a single plain envelope, addressed in elegant, looping script to WangYibo and XiaoZhan, with a curious second line, forged in fire. It was hand-delivered, bypassing their agents and managers entirely. Yibo picked it up, his brow furrowed in suspicion. "Who would even know this address?" he muttered, turning it over in his hands. XiaoZhan took it from him, his fingers tracing the address. "Forged in fire," he read aloud, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "That's what they've always called us, in their letters. The fans." He opened it. Inside wasn't a typical fan letter filled with praise or well-wishes. It was a single sheet of parchment-like paper, scented faintly with old ink. There was no signature, only a short, cryptic message written in the same neat hand. "The unfinished symphony is not a tragedy, but a legacy. The artist's last wish was not to be famous, but to be heard. He left a message in the silence. It is for you. Look for the layered truth. It is the only thing that can set a legacy free." Below the message was a single, precisely drawn sketch of a brush and a chisel, crossed like swords, over a small, intricate symbol. The symbol was the same as the one Yibo had found on the back of his grandfather's old photograph, the one that marked the Wang family's company emblem. The letter was insane. It felt like a riddle from a forgotten era, a whisper from the past that they were never meant to hear. The phrase, "the unfinished symphony," kept echoing in their minds. It was a name neither of them recognized. They spent the next hour online, searching for any artist, any painting, with that name. Their searches came up empty, as if the phrase were a ghost. Yibo, however, was a man of logic and detail. The symbol on the letter was too specific to be a coincidence. He pulled out the old photograph of his grandfather, which had become a grim totem of their inherited pain. The symbol on the back was identical. "This is not a random fan," Yibo stated, his voice low and serious. "This is someone who knows. Someone who knows the truth." The search for the artist led them down a different path entirely. They found a digitized archive of a little-known art historian, a contemporary of their grandfather's. His final, unpublished manuscript was titled The Unfinished Symphony of Two Masters. The file was protected, locked away behind a series of complex firewalls. It would have taken days to crack, but the letter's clue, the brush and the chisel, was a password. Yibo and XiaoZhan were in a shared mind. They typed in BRUSHN. The archive unlocked. The manuscript was a revelation, but not in the way they expected. It wasn't about the grandfather's feud. It was about an artist, a sculptor and painter, who had tried and failed to mediate the conflict between two men he considered his closest friends. The artist wrote about their shared beginnings, their dreams, and how a third party, a cunning business rival, had sown seeds of discord and misinformation between them. The climax of the document was the account of the artist's final work, a single massive canvas he titled The Unfinished Symphony. The canvas was his final futile attempt to bring them together, to show them the beauty they were tearing apart. But the document ended abruptly, with a note from the historian that the work had been lost. "It's not lost," XiaoZhan said, his voice trembling with a sudden, dawning realization. "The letter didn't say it was a painting. It said it was a legacy. A message in the silence." He remembered the precise, delicate lines of the artist's sketch in the letter. He had used a unique, almost forgotten technique of etching layers of paint. "The truth is hidden in the silence. It's not a painting to be seen. It's a sculpture to be felt." The mind-blowing scene unfolded in a hidden warehouse that the historian's file had led them to, a place long forgotten, on the outskirts of the city. The door was unlocked, as if awaiting their arrival. Inside, covered in a dusty sheet, was the massive canvas. It was unassuming at first, a swirl of dark blues and purples. But as they got closer, they saw it. The artist hadn't painted on the canvas. He had embedded objects within it, a technique no one had ever understood. It was a three-dimensional tapestry. They carefully, reverently, peeled back a section of the canvas, their hearts pounding in their chests. And there, sealed in a small, waterproof compartment within the layers of dried paint, was a microfilmed document. It wasn't a letter of apology from their grandfathers, but something far more powerful, irrefutable evidence of the third party's manipulation. It was a series of coded telegrams and financial records, proving how the rival had profited from pitting their grandfathers against each other. The artist, knowing he was dying, had hidden this evidence, not for revenge, but for the hope that someday, someone would find it and end the vicious cycle. He had left it for them, a last plea to a future generation. The discovery was their turning point. It wasn't just evidence of a crime, it was a testament to the buried good in their family histories. It validated their refusal to be defined by a past they never made. They took the microfilm to a journalist they trusted, a man who had been fair to them during the public broadcast. They gave him the full story, from the fan letter to the hidden canvas. The next day, the story broke, not as a salacious headline, but as an epic tale of hope and redemption. The public was captivated. The fan letter that had set off the chain of events became a symbol of a community's faith in them, a community that had seen their true selves and refused to let them be torn down. The scandal was not erased, but it was recontextualized. The public narrative shifted from one of inherited vengeance to one of inherited healing. The Wang and Xiao families, confronted with the irrefutable evidence, finally found peace and a way to move forward, together. The fan letter, a quiet act of hope from a stranger, had been the one true key that unlocked not just a family secret, but a new, beautiful, and authentic beginning for them both. The public's initial reaction to the broadcast was a wave of stunned silence, followed by a digital tsunami of activity. The meticulously planned exposé of the family secret, which was meant to destroy WangYibo and XiaoZhan, was now being re-examined with a new, a more sympathetic lens. The journalist who broke their story, a man known for his integrity, provided a comprehensive report that included not only the microfilmed evidence, but also an interview with a surviving member of the artist's family, who corroborated the account of the unfinished symphony. The news spread like wildfire. Social media, once a breeding ground for rumor and hostility, became a platform for a new kind of conversation. The hashtag forged in fire, a term once used by their devoted fans, now trended globally as a symbol of their resilience. The public, who had been quick to judge, were now humbled. Apologies poured in from former critics, and celebrities who had once distanced themselves now offered public support. It was an unprecedented shift in public opinion, a full-circle moment that validated WangYibo and XiaoZhan's faith in the truth. The professional ramifications were immediate. The companies that had put their endorsements on hold now rushed to re-sign them, often with more favorable terms. The director of the film project that had been delayed publicly apologized and announced that filming would resume immediately. The narrative around them had shifted so completely that they were no longer just two actors, but symbols of integrity and courage. Their story became a lesson on the dangers of misinformation and the importance of seeking the truth. In the midst of the whirlwind, WangYibo and XiaoZhan found a quiet moment to themselves. They were more than just a couple that survived a scandal. They were a team that had triumphed over a generations-old injustice. Their bond, once a fragile secret, was now a public testament to their strength and their love. They had gone through the fire and emerged, not unscathed, but with a bond that had been hardened and purified. Their love was no longer just for them. It was a message of hope for all those who had been judged by a history they did not choose. The reconciliation of their families, once a seemingly impossible dream, began not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet, shared viewing of the journalist's broadcast. WangYibo's parents watched in stunned silence from their living room, their faces illuminated by the television screen. They saw the microfilmed evidence, the coded telegrams, and the intricate financial records. The proof of the third party's manipulation was so undeniable it shattered the decades-old pain and anger they had held onto. The narrative they had built their lives around, of a brutal, personal betrayal, was revealed to be a meticulously crafted lie. The shame of their past was replaced by a profound sense of relief and grief for the lost years. Meanwhile, XiaoZhan's mother, who had been aware of her father's shadowy past but had no knowledge of the specific details, watched with tears in her eyes. The broadcast provided a new, complex understanding of the man she knew as a gentle scholar. He had been a victim of manipulation just as much as he had been a perpetrator of ruthlessness. The broadcast, a public vindication, became a private catalyst for healing within both families. The first step toward reconciliation was a tentative meeting, arranged by the families' respective managers. It wasn't a formal affair, but a quiet dinner at a private restaurant. The atmosphere was strained at first, filled with unspoken apologies and years of built-up tension. But as the evening progressed, Yibo's mother, her voice thick with emotion, reached out to XiaoZhan's mother. "We've all been victims of this," she said, her voice shaking. "We held on to a lie for so long, and it hurt us all." XiaoZhan's mother, in a moment of shared grief and understanding, took her hand. The reconciliation was a gradual process, built on small acts of forgiveness and a shared commitment to building a new, honest legacy for their families.